Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the Logitech Streamcam. This is an unboxing and review video with a slight twist, because I've actually convinced Logitech to send me temporarily 2 of these Streamcams so I can unbox them in an interesting style. So if you stick with me in a minute, I'm going to show you a Logitech Streamcam being used to unbox a Logitech Streamcam, so you can see the capture quality of the camera and how it stacks up to my Panasonic Lumix GH4, which I'm using currently and is my usual camera for recording purposes. Now this is a 1080p 60 frames per second camera with some interesting highlights. It'll set you back around $170 or £170, so it's not cheap by any means, but it is really stylish and snazzy. Now I am going to do a separate video comparing it to the Logitech C920, which has been around for ages and I've had and been using for a long time. And stick with me and subscribe to see that in the near future. But now I'm going to give you an overview of the Streamcam. It is a nifty looking device. It comes in white or black, and as you can see, the white one is really nice. It has a variety of mounting options and a very nice swivel base as standard that extends and sits over the top of your monitor. Another thing you'll note immediately is it has a USB-C cable for connection purposes, which is a departure from the standard USB-A, and also makes it a bit more future-proof. However, it is worth bearing in mind, because if, like me, you might not have multiple USB-C connections on your PC or laptop. I've only got 2 on my PC, so I could potentially connect 2 of these cameras up to it, but that's consideration. The other thing is this base that you can actually remove that you'll see. And there's 2 options, one of which allows you to attach it to a standard thread that can then be put on a tripod, and I'm going to put that to good use in a minute when I mount this camera that you see here on my tripod, to then unbox the other one just to show you the quality difference. So as I said, this is captured with the Lumix GH4, and in a minute you get to see the footage as it is shot with the camera itself. Obviously that's not the intention of this camera. It's meant to be sitting on your monitor and being used to capture you either gaming or doing whatever you want to do online as a content video creator or a streamer, but it is an interesting use. I thought it was worth highlighting what the quality of the video is like. Now, as you can see, you've got these 2 different mounting options. What you might also note is that you can mount it in both landscape and portrait, and I'll show you that a bit later on. So here I'm taking off my old camera and installing the other attachment to then set it on my tripod. So you can just take off the standard base. It clips on with 2 little clips on the side, and you clip on the other one and then screw that onto your tripod. It's a standard thread mount, so you can easily put it on a tripod. So you could use any little tripod you wanted basically to fit this on if you wanted to. Therefore put it on your desk. You don't necessarily have to mount it on top of your monitor, which is pretty cool, and it's a good option. As I said, you've got a 5-meter cable, which isn't quite long enough for what I was trying to do. I didn't have that much flexibility around the room, but luckily I've got a front USB-C port on my PC, so it's sort of within range, and you get a little behind the scenes view of my office. So here's the other Streamcam, exactly the same, but here is the footage captured straight out of the Streamcam itself. You can see default, without any tweaks, the footage is a bit washed out. This is obviously 1080p versus the 4K from the DSLR, and it's not perhaps a fair comparison, but it is quite washed out. Now you can change a bit of this in the settings of the Logitech capture software or other software that you're using. So it works with XSplit and OBS Studios and other things like that that'll pull in a webcam, and you can obviously then customize the settings, and I'll show you that a bit later on, where I'll show you some footage captured in OBS Studio and some adjustments that I made to brightness, contrast, saturation, things like that to improve it. But you will notice that as things like adjusts auto brightness, autofocus as well, and you'll see that as I'm unboxing it too. What you will note is that it has still a very nice design to it. I really like the sort of cloth finish on the front. It's quite a chunky beast compared to the C920. When I do the comparison video, you'll see the difference. The old C920 was quite wide and thin. This one's quite fat, but it does have a nice hefty, flexible and bendable base to it, so it does sit quite well on top of the monitor, and just for demonstration purposes I'm going to put it on top of this D-Room speaker that I have. If you're interested, you can check out the video on that. It's a nifty little pixel art speaker, Bluetooth speaker. You can create your own animations and various styles on, but I thought it was a nice little way to show off how it mounts on top of even the fattest of monitors. I don't think you're going to see a monitor that fat nowadays, but it sits really nicely on top of smaller, thin, ultra-wide monitor that I'm using as standard. And you have a nice bit of adjustment in there. You can set it up the way you want it, or you have the option of tripod mounting it, as I said. And potentially you can use this as a little stand, and I'll show you that a bit later on its own as well. As you can see, there is a bit of blurriness to it. It's trying to work out what it should be focusing on. The autofocus isn't perfect, so if you're thinking you're going to get a Streamcam to try and do what I do, like unboxing things, you might have trouble. Even with a DSLR, I have to manually focus on the right point most of the time. However, when capturing faces, as you'll see later on, which is probably the most of what this camera is intended for, it does a really good job of focusing regularly on the face with very little drop off in terms of the autofocus, and therefore it does a fantastic thing of it. Now, the other thing you can do is you see the clips on the sides of this stand and on the camera itself mean that you can mount it both in landscape and portrait mode. Now obviously the portrait mode means that you can then capture footage to then use on social media, like on Instagram or Facebook, where you have the more square style videos, and you can see that that will be this way around, so you have the two options. There you'll just notice the autofocus, as well as moving it, goes in and out, and it's having trouble to work out where it's meant to be focusing, and therefore it loses some of it. So if it's moving around too much, one thing that is nice though, it has image stabilisation on it. So this is obviously on a tripod, but I'm actually going to do a bit of handheld movement as well, and it does a fairly good job of coping with that a DSLR certainly wouldn't. So it is impressive in some areas. The autofocus is a bit off, but there's not that much shake in the camera despite me moving it around in my hands, so it is pretty nifty actually. It's quite impressive for a little camera. Just a small amount of money. Now this is footage that I captured with a similar process but using the Logitech capture software, and unfortunately that crashed, and you can see the crash here, and so I ended up having to unbox it again. The magic of video. You can see this is the software itself. This is a free download, but you can create and log into a Logitech account to then get access to a variety of other things, and you can see there are options to pull in several cameras. You can also tweak all sorts of things in here. You can set it to prioritize exposure or frame rate. You can adjust for image stabilization, automatic focus, auto framing, all sorts of other cool things in here. As I said, the image stabilization was pretty impressive, so it's a nice option. Auto white balance is potentially an issue there. Maybe if you set that manually, they might adjust for some of the problem that I've had with it being washed out. I think as default, when you get it out of the box, you'll probably find it's a bit too washed out and not that great looking, but you can tweak it really easily within this software or within any other software that you happen to be using. You'll see that there are filters. You'll note some of them are locked because you need to log in, but you can also do other things. You can record directly in this software. You can take photos. You can set it up. It's kind of like a mini OBS studio if you have any experience with that. You can also set where the recordings are going to go and what frame they're recording at and what resolution and other things too. So it's fairly simple to set it up in a variety of different ways. Experience with it has been pretty good. I do feel like I need to play around with the software a bit more and see how that gets on, but I have found it crashed multiple times when trying to record. One of the things you can do with OBS is you can also pull in a video source as the Logitech capture software and pull that into the OBS and then use it like that. So there are different ways of using the camera that might work depending on how you're streaming. Now going back to the standard macro lens on my DSLR to show you show off a bit better the design of it. You'll see a nice close-up view of the peel and also of that sort of fabric finish to it. This white one looks the part. It's a really nice design, very clean looking, and it makes a nice addition to your monitor rather than the traditional boring black ones. And also that USB-C cable connection is an interesting bit of potential future-proofing. However, it's worth noting that you need to have a USB-C connection, so it's worth bearing in mind before you purchase it. The swapping between the portrait and landscape is also really easy. It's basically just a couple of hooks on the side of those mounts. Just pry them off with your finger, turn it around and put it back on. It's simple enough to sort out. You also note that it tells you your 1080p 60 frames per second on the outside and the f-stop of the lens as well. You can precariously use the little stand that sits on the back of the monitor as a mini mount for it, although it is a bit precariously balanced there and it might fall over, but it does show that there are a flexible number of options in terms of the way you can set it up potentially, so you could easily angle it to get a good view whichever where you're gonna be using it. Potentially you could have two. I'm thinking of experimenting with these two, maybe have one on my hand, maybe have one on the keyboard or something, or showing off your PC while you're gaming. Pull them both into the stream and get some nice visuals going on for your audience. It is worth bearing in mind that the microphone isn't amazing on this, unfortunately. I was going to record this video using the microphone to do the voiceover, but the capture quality is not amazing. This is what the quality of the capture is like. It's currently set up, I'm using OBS Studios. And I'm pulling in the camera into that, and I've got a green screen behind me which I'll be doing a video on separately. Nanoleaf panels in front of me lighting me up, and the camera's on top of my monitor. You can see I look quite pale. This is kind of like the default settings. I look really pale and washed out. You can adjust all this stuff within the Logitech capture software, but I found it to be really flaky. As you've seen already, it crashes. And it seems to crash quite consistently, and I don't know if it's conflict on my computer or if it's generally that poor, which is a shame, but you can still tweak stuff within OBS. So for example, I'm just adjusting contrast, tweak brightness, get a bit more colour in the skin because I'm not really that pasty. Okay, that's slightly better. The sharpness improved. White balance is currently set to auto. There is autofocus as well, and you can see it does a pretty good job of tracking, but you will note like changes in the light. You might have picked that up when I was doing the unboxing too. Changes in the way it reacts to the light, so it's not perfect, but the video quality is certainly better than the C920. I'm going to do a video to compare the C920 because I've happened to have one of those for a long time. They're both 1080p, but the new Logitech Streamcam is obviously better in a number of different ways, and it does deliver a pretty good experience. I was planning on using the microphone to capture the audio for this video, but unfortunately the mic is a bit washy and not great. I don't know how much of a problem that's going to be for people. I need to test it out a bit more and see how I can get on with it, but I found from what I've been doing trying to record it, it's not come out that well, and it's not good enough quality to do this video. So if you are thinking of streaming, I'd suggest you also need a dedicated microphone or a headset like I'm using now, and then you can get a better quality mic audio. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting or hilarious. Be sure to subscribe and check out these other videos, as well as taking a look in the description for links and information you might find useful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or anything you'd like to see extra about this, and have a great life.